Hi all, thank you for joining the webinar. Had a little late start here to just allow a few more people to join, but we are going to get started now. This webinar will be recorded, so there will be the opportunity to see the webinar again after the fact, after it's done. We're excited to get started, and my name is Nathan Treadwell. I'm with Nomad Credit, and we also have Auxilo here, and we're excited to share a lot of great knowledge with you about U.S. admissions and the visa process, as well as funding options to help achieve those goals. So to start, I'm going to speak a bit on the U.S. admissions side, and then we have Manoj Shetty, the product and sales head of Auxilo, our valued partners for loan options. He's going to speak to you about Auxilo's loan products. So I wanted to introduce you quickly to Manoj just here in the beginning, and we'll say a few words to you.
Hi everyone, this is Manoj from Auxilo. I take care of sales and product for Auxilo. So it's a privilege to basically address you out here, and in case if you have any doubts with regards to your financial solutions, I will be happy to address them. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Manoj. So Manoj will be with us again later on in the webinar, and he has a lot of great information to share with you. And as I said, my name is Nathan Treadwell, and I lead the U.S. admissions with Nomad Credit. And so I'm going to go into all things U.S. admissions. And then at the very end, just note that there will be opportunity to ask both myself and Manoj questions regarding U.S. admissions and the loan options that may accompany that. So a little bit about Nomad Credit. So we are a company with a founding team of recent U.S. university graduates who are really excited about lowering the barriers to U.S. higher education, especially for international students. So we have lived, worked, and studied in the U.S. and have access to over 2 decades worth of U.S. admissions experience. So you might want to consider why U.S. should be your country of study for your study abroad destination. There are many reasons, but a few really stick out. The first is there's a top world economy. The U.S. is the world's largest economy at roughly $20.4 trillion and is continuing to grow, growing over $1 trillion from last year. A strong economy is really important for one thing: jobs and salaries. And the U.S. is seeing the lowest unemployment rate in 10 years, as well as the average graduate salary is the highest it's been in the last decade too. So this obviously bodes well for students that graduate from U.S. universities. There's also a STEM shortage. And as you probably know, STEM stands for science, tech, engineering, and mathematics. And the U.S. is really experiencing a shortage of qualified candidates to fill in STEM jobs for U.S. companies, such as tech, and even financial companies need these majors as well. So many international students take advantage of this by pursuing a STEM major in their undergraduate or graduate studies. This can prove to be a wise decision, as there is quite the demand for it from companies in the U.S., from anywhere from engineering to tech to financial government jobs as well. Everybody needs these jobs filled. As an example of that demand, according to a 2016 U.S. News and Raytheon STEM Index report, since 2000, there's been a 6% increase in STEM graduate degrees granted, and a 5% increase in all STEM degrees granted. STEM jobs have increased much faster than overall employment too. 28% increase since 2000 compared to just 6% for all jobs. In fact, computer jobs hold the top 7 positions for the highest number of employees in the U.S. And 3 out of the 5 highest paying STEM salaries are in IT related fields. Information system managers have a yearly salary of $141,000 US. Computer research scientists are paid $115,000, and computer hardware engineers make $114,000. So not only is there a tremendous demand for STEM jobs from US companies, international students can take advantage of the OPT program, which you probably have heard of. So the OPT stands for the Optional Practical Training, and every student has the ability to partake in that program if you're an international student. So typically a student will come to the US on an F1 visa, which will last for the duration of their study. Then the student will need to obtain an H-1B visa to continue their stay in the US. However, if the student does take advantage of this OPT program, they can stay for up to a year after graduation before needing to be sponsored for an H-1B visa. And then there's the kicker for the STEM majors. The students that studied a STEM degree can actually add an additional 2 years to that OPT program, which allows them to stay a whole 3 years before needing to be sponsored for an H-1B visa. So as you can imagine, many international students take advantage of this because they can have those 3 years before they have to get the H-1B, and this allows them to get 3 years of US salary, which can also be very beneficial, especially if a student took an education loan to help fund their studies. So finding a job after graduating is great, but how does one begin the process of even gaining admission to a US university? So one of the first steps will be proper profile evaluation. I'm sure you've all heard of the safe, moderate, and ambitious university system, and this is absolutely fine, but you'll need to make sure that the universities that you are told fit in those categories actually do fit and pertain to your profile and your interest of study. So a little bit about what is actually important within a profile. So there are 3 major aspects of the profile that are massively more important than some of the others. The TOEFL or IELTS exam, the GRE or GMAT exam if you're a master's or MBA candidate, and your CGPA or percentage. Now, universities will consider other aspects such as a statement of purpose, your work experience, your research papers. However, they likely will not impact as much as a language test, GRE, GMAT, or SAT if you're undergrad, and the CGPA or percentage. Now, the reason for this is that the US universities have hard requirements, and it can be very hard for them to evaluate international student accolades. So often, they will default to standardized exams and qualities. For instance, a 310 GRE, they know what that means, versus working for a company that they likely just are not aware of because it's in a different country. So once you've determined which schools you'd like to apply to based on your profile and interest, you'll actually need to go through the application process for that school. So this step can include filling out forms, collecting all of your academic documents, providing a resume, writing a statement of purpose, lining up your recommenders to receive your letters of recommendations. Just as an example, most universities will require 3 of those. You certainly can do this process on your own, but many students will determine they want an expert's help who has done thousands of these applications and knows all the ins and outs that might occur. No university application is exactly the same, so students will determine they might need help navigating this process. In addition, many students will incorrectly fill out their application, and we've seen several instances where this has actually caused an application denial that they would not have received if they had done so correctly. So in fact, we at Nomad, we help their students through their applications, and we take care of everything so that no mistakes may occur. And we've had many students that have used our service tell us that they've never imagined a process so easy. So with Nomad, you'll get all of your documents in and we can take care of the process for you. Now, whether you use us or do it on your own or another study abroad consultant, once your application is done, the next step is to wait. Different universities will take different amounts of time to get their admissions decisions out to those that apply. Some students will take advantage of an admission consultant's relationship with universities to help speed up that admission decision process, which can cut down the wait time from several months to as little as several days, depending on the university. An admission consultant can speak directly to the university to get an update that may take several months if a student was to apply on their own. And often universities will just never provide a reason for denial or acceptance, and it might just be several months and they will just give a response. So that's an advantage of using a consultant that does have a relationship with the university, that they can both speed up the process and get a bit more insight into what the decision might be. Once you've been admitted to a university, you'll then need to prove that you have the funding to pay for your schooling. So So once you've been admitted to a university, you'll then need to prove that you have the funding to pay for your schooling. So many will explore an education loan option to do so. And as promised earlier, Manoj will explain Auxilo's education loan products in a moment. So just hang tight and we'll get to Manoj. And lastly, once you have your admittance and funding secured, you'll need to go through the visa process. A major component of this consists of a visa interview with the U.S. consulate. They will look at many factors to determine your eligibility to gain a visa. And more on this in a moment too. We have some great visa tips at the end. So there are over 3,000 U.S. universities and over 1.1 million international students studying at them. So it can become very overwhelming to decide where to go. So that's why it's important to speak with somebody knowledgeable about the U.S. and the U.S. schools. So we highly suggest you speak with professionals in the U.S. to get their insights into U.S. culture, the U.S. education system, and the U.S. economy. While overall the U.S. economy is very good and growing, it's important to understand the regional and local economies of the U.S. universities you might be considering, as that will have a profound effect on your job prospects. It's almost impossible for someone not in the U.S. to know these nuances. For instance, most companies will hire from local universities. So it's important to know which companies hire for OPT and which sponsor for H-1B visas. For instance, if there's too many international students in a certain region, the companies will just continue hiring for OPT, and because they know that they can get new labor that's graduating, that they'll just continue hiring for OPT. And as such will not sponsor many H-1B visas. So that's just a small nuance that could be very helpful to know and will be different based on what region you're in. And another note, the US is bigger than India geographically, and different industries are very strong in different regions. So if possible, you could go to a school that is actually located 3,000 kilometers away from a company that you might want to work at. So you want to make sure you don't end up in a situation like that. In addition, visa laws can be difficult to understand, as well as how the university processing works in regards to affidavits of support, the Form I-20, and how all that ties into the F-1 visa. Then making sure you take the steps necessary to take full advantage of your OPT eligibility once you are in the US, and ultimately finding a company to sponsor you for an H-1B visa. So taking the wrong step once you are already in the US and even before could cause you to lose a year or more of your time that you would be eligible to stay. So this is a really tough decision to make that could be anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000. That's 35 to 70 lakh investment. And without speaking to someone who is truly knowledgeable about the US and the US university landscape by virtue of living, studying, and working there, it's pretty hard to trust a decision to someone who has not done that. So now for a few visa tips that might help you in your search for US university and ultimately gaining visa approval. You should be aware of popular schools that many Indian students will apply to and the dangers of admittance to them, especially for students from the Hyderabad region. Certain universities develop a reputation of accepting a lot of Indian students, and U.S. consulates can and will frown upon admittance there, which can often result in a visa denial. So it's important that you are aware of what universities might be that way and to get admittance to universities that do not have that reputation. Another visa tip is to get at least 3 university admits. Visa officers will look to you having more than one admit, as doing so shows them that you took the time to do your research and considered several universities that might be a fit for you. So understanding the visa interview process is very key to your success of gaining a visa. Visa officers will often ask certain questions and look for certain answers to these questions. A wrong answer could prove to be very detrimental to your prospects, and in some cases could be the difference between gaining a visa or not. In addition, it's very important to know what to bring to your interview so that you are prepared and not caught off guard. Students that used our visa training had over 80% approvals last year, and most that did not gain approval did not actually take the GRE. Which brings us to our last tip. While some universities don't require GRE or IELTS, visa officers will look for it. It shows them that you did all the steps possible to gain your best chance of U.S. university admittance, and not taking them will not be a favor in your factor. So make sure you take all the tests, IELTS, TOEFL for all students, GRE, GMAT for master's candidates and MBA candidates. And if you're an undergrad, even though most universities don't necessarily require an SAT, having your SAT will be hugely beneficial for your visa interview. And then the last tip is a loan tip. So many study abroad consultants do not think about loans when doing profile evaluation. They might put them into schools that they might not be, that a student isn't eligible for a loan, or go to a school that's too expensive and can't cover the full expenses. And so that is all for my US admissions presentation. And with that last loan tip, I think it transitions well to hand the reins over to Manoj, and he's going to speak to you about Auxilo's education loan products. And again, we'll have a question and answer section at the end, but for now, giving it to Manoj.
Thanks, Nathan, for that wonderful knowledge in terms of how to apply for visa and all. It was really very informative. Just to give you information about the loan process, let me tell you guys, it is extremely easy. You have the university in place, you admit in place. I don't think so you need to worry about the financing bit of it. Uh, uh, what Auxilo does is, we basically work on this concept that, all eligible students who are capable students should basically get a loan. So the criteria is every loan we basically structure this product so that it basically suits the requirement of the student. To begin with, a capable student, when he basically applies to Auxilo, you will see that we provide them with unsecured loan. So what happens is today when the student steps into Auxilo, he doesn't have to give us any kind of security, and the loan amount basically would include the tuition fees, your books and periodicals. You're talking about your stay expense. We cover all the expenses, and this would be completely unsecured. Secondly, one of the few things when you are applying for loan, you should be very careful about it is your credit bureau score. That is something which becomes extremely critical. So generally, you should ensure that your credit bureau scores are clean. That will really help you to get a good bargain rate. Not that in case if your credit scores are not that great, the only problem you would normally face is your rate of interest will be on the higher side of it. So that is something which you should be mindful of. Generally, we cover all countries, with be it US or be it non-US countries like Germany, UK, and all. We cover all these countries altogether. Our approach toward loan is, I would say, very scientific. Also, we have our own algorithm models and all. The purpose of this algorithm is basically to remove the human side of subjectivity. Our endeavor will always been and has been towards servicing customers in terms of structuring loans wherever we have capable students. To add on further, I mean, we come from a very good pedigree. Our promoters are basically Akash Bansali, who's a very respected name in financial service industry, and our second promoter is Balrampur Chini. It's a listed entity altogether. So to sum it up, if you ask me, sum it up, if you tell me, we Auxilo would provide you 100% loan. You can expect we don't ask for security. Our loan processing would be like we give 24 hours sanction with no margin money required. We give you options like doorstep services. Our deliver execution is more digital. All the documentations can be uploaded on our website and all that stuff. So this is what we have to offer. And I mean, if there are any questions, please feel free to ask me. I'll be there around. Nathan, that's it from my side.
Great. Thank you, Manoj. That was very insightful. Yeah, so please, for those that are attending the webinar, don't hesitate to get in touch with Auxilo for any of your loan option needs. So yeah, now if you guys have questions, we'd like to open it up for question and answer session. There should be a tab on your GoToWebinar app where you can ask questions. And it looks like we got one here to start. Hold on. So a question from Jonathan. Hey, if you would like to type in your question, we'd be happy to answer. Hey, Manoj, I think we have a question that would be for Auxilo. The question is, yeah, interest rate and quick process for loan by Auxilo. So, yeah, maybe you could just expand on the rates and what the process might look like.
So, I mean, generally to answer this, to stress on this, I would say that, when you come to the loan process, I would say that that's the most easiest part of going through the process, because I would say giving GRE and preparing for that is much more difficult than the loan process. To answer it to specifically, ROI, basically when you say rate of interest, it is basically a function of many things. To begin with, we look at where exactly the student is going, which kind of institute he is getting into. We also look into his CIBIL records. So if everything stands good, all these parameters basically sum up to what rate of interest you're looking at. And what was the second? I missed the second bit of it. There were two parts to the question, right?
Oh, yes, the quick process for the loan.
Yeah. So generally, when a student would apply for the loan, what we require is basically a KYC, that is know your customer, where we basically ask for, which is RBI, Reserve Bank of India mandate, where we basically ask for basic documents like, either a PAN card or either a passport or some income details, and KYC of your parents and all that. So to sum it up, we're talking about KYC out here, and the rate of interest would be completely a function of which college you're getting into, and on the other side of it, and what is your credit bureau score. So these are the two parameters which basically drives the rate of interest.
Great. Thank you, Manoj. Great answer. So we have a question from Nikhil. How long does the admission process take? So there's kind of two ways to maybe answer that question. The admission process could conceivably begin, as soon as you finish your undergraduate schooling, or even before that, preparing for your exams and whatnot. But that is a different timeline in terms of just how long it takes to actually apply to schools. The actual application process, once you have all of the documents needed, The process itself to apply can happen as little as a day. Typically, it might be 2 to 3 days to have everything applied. There might be a couple supplemental things to do after the initial application in terms of making sure your recommenders send in an electronic letter of recommendation. So the application process itself does not take too long. However, the thing that to note is certain universities will take longer to have a decision. So some of our partner universities can have a decision in as little as a few days and up to a couple weeks, but there are universities that may take a month or two to get back. So that's why it's really important to apply to several schools so that you can get those admission decisions sooner than later from at least one or two of them. All right, we have another question for, I think, Manoj. Do we need to show any collateral?
No. So again, to talk about the purpose of the whole, when you go through the loan process, the purpose is basically to make it easy for you. So I would not say that every loan which you enter into basically would be an unsecured loan. But what I would say is it again depends upon what university you're getting into. See, what happens is what we look into is it's simple math in terms of what is the probability of you basically getting into a good job in future, and what would be your repayment capability when you finish your course. So in case if you get into a very good university, my probability of you getting into a good job goes up, and that's why for me to give you an unsecured loan becomes much easier. So our endeavor has always been to give students unsecured loan. If we are getting into asking for security, that means we are not sure whether that the college is good. So to sum it up, generally, if the college is extremely good, we do not ask for security.
Great, yeah, and that's something that we do as well from a profile evaluation standpoint. We certainly consider the ability to have a loan from going to that university. So that kind of ties into what Manoj was just saying. So yeah, thank you for that insight, Manoj. So we're getting a lot of specific profile questions. We will be happy to answer those. I think that might be best. We'll reach out individually and be able to provide you a quick profile eval based on the information you said. So we'll leave this question and answer session more for general questions, just so that they can apply to everyone. Hold on, we have, I think another question, Manoj. Does Auxilo provide loan amount in US dollars or Indian rupees? We have a student that is already in the USA.
So generally what happens is if a student basically applies for a loan, we basically we directly give it to the student's account, and we also give facility of converting that account to forex exchange. So we give an Indian rupee, and there are forex exchange vendors who basically help them convert that amount to US dollars or whichever currency it is.
Great. And then do you have a general range of interest rate? That was another question.
So generally, as I told you, I mean, it completely depends upon what kind of college he's getting into and what is his credit bureau score. So to talk about the range, it is a function of these two variables. But to talk about the range, it can vary from 11 to 10% to go up till 13%.
Great, thank you. All right, any other questions? I think we have a few profile-specific ones that I will personally reach out and answer. But if we have any other more general questions or loan questions, we're happy to answer. All right, I think that's it for now, unless last chance to get a question in. Well, great. Yeah, we will wrap up this webinar now. Both myself and Manoj and Nomad Credit and Auxilo really appreciate your time. We will have a recording of this webinar that will be available to you if you'd like. If you have any questions, specific questions for admissions, please reach out to myself. My email is nathan@nomadcredit.com. And Manoj, did you have a quick email you thought might be best for someone to reach out if they have a loan question?
My email ID is Manoj, MANOJ .Shetty, SHETTY @auxilo.com. I'll repeat, manoj.shetty @auxilo.com.
All right, thank you, Manoj. And yes, I'll spell mine out as well. It's NATHAN @nomadcredit.com. And I have one last question I can answer. The question is, how many universities is best to apply? So it's really good to have at least 3 admits for visa purposes. So in a sense, you want to make sure you get those 3 admittances. So how many you apply to will depend on how many ambitious universities you apply to versus how many safe. We often recommend that a student applies to a couple safe universities just to have those admittances in hand, and then maybe 2 or 3 more that are probable, and then always a good chance just to apply to 1 or 2 reaches, because if you do get in, then it would be good to go to those schools. I think we had Manoj. Could you just please repeat your? Hold on, I think I can. Manoj Shetty @Auxilo.com. Yes, I'm sorry, Manoj. Could you please just repeat your email? One of the students had wished
It
to
is
know.
Manoj, MANOJ .Shetty, SHETTY @auxilo.com, AUXILO.com.
Okay, great, thank you. And to all that posted their profile, we will reach out. So look for a note today, this evening, and I appreciate all of your time, and I hope you have a good evening and a good weekend.
Thanks, Nathan. Thanks, everyone, for joining this webcast. Thanks a lot. Have a nice weekend, Nathan. Take care.
Yes, thank
Bye.
you as well. Appreciate your valuable insight.
Same here.